So hello everyone, my name is Nicholas Evers and today I'll be presenting my case study on Apple vs Samsung, a landmark patent infringement case. This is one of the most significant intellectual property disputes in modern history because it involved two of the world's largest technology companies competing in the smartphone industry. This case is important because it helped shape how courts interpret patents, especially design patents, and it demonstrated how valuable intellectual property can be in business competition. So the purpose of this presentation is to examine one of the most important patent disputes in recent history, analyze how intellectual property law was applied, and evaluate the long-term legal and business impacts of the case. So my thesis is that Apple vs Samsung case changed how the courts interpret design patents and strengthened the importance of protecting innovation. This case also showed that intellectual property rights are not just legal tools, they're strategic business assets that can influence market leadership, product development, and competitive advantage. So to understand the dispute, it is important to understand the parties involved. First, Apple was founded in 1976 and became one of the most innovative companies in the world. Apple introduced the iPhone in 2007, which transformed the smartphone market through sleek design and touchscreen technology. And then second, Samsung Electronics is a major South Korean technology company and one of Apple's biggest competitors. Samsung produces smartphones, televisions, and many other electronics. And by the early 2010s, both companies were competing directly for dominance in the global smartphone market, which set the stage for this lawsuit. So in 2011, Apple filed a lawsuit against Samsung in the United States federal court. Apple claimed Samsung directly copied key features of the iPhone and infringed several Apple patents. Some of the main issues included the iPhone's rounded rectangular shape, the grid-style arrangement of app icons, and touchscreen functions such as tap, zoom, and scrolling features. Apple argued that Samsung intentionally copied these elements to make its phones look and function like the iPhone. Samsung denied wrongdoing and argued that many smartphone features were common throughout the industry, meaning that elements such as rectangular touchscreens, rounded corners, flat glass fronts, icon-based home screens, and swipe-based touchscreen controls were standard features already used or expected in modern smartphones. Samsung claimed these designs were driven by functionality and consumer demand rather than copied exclusively from Apple. So this case raised several major legal questions. First, did Samsung unlawfully copy Apple's patented designs? Second, were Apple's patents valid and enforceable? Third, how should damages be calculated if infringement occurs? And fourth, should Apple be entitled to Samsung's total profits from entire smartphones, or only profits related to the specific infringing components? These issues were important because the answers would impact not only the companies, but future patent disputes across many industries. Apple argued that Samsung intentionally copied the iPhone's appearance and technology. Apple believed this created consumer confusion and harmed Apple's brand identity. Because of that, Apple sought significant monetary damages. Samsung responded by arguing that many smartphone designs relied on common features such as rectangular screens and icon layouts. Samsung also claimed that some Apple patents were too broad or should not have been granted. Additionally, Samsung argued that Apple's requested damages were excessive, as Apple sought more than $1 billion in monetary compensation. Samsung claimed it was unreasonable for Apple to seek profits tied to entire smartphone sales when the dispute involved only certain design features and software functions. Samsung argued that any damages, if awarded, should be limited to specific patented components rather than the full value of each device. This created a major conflict between protecting innovation and preventing overly broad patent control. The main law applied was 35 U.S.C. Section 271, which governs patent infringement. This statute makes it unlawful to use, sell, or make patented invention without authorization. Another major law was 35 U.S.C. Section 289, which deals with design patent damages. This law allows patent holders to recover profits from products that infringe a design patent. This case involved both utility patents, which protect how something works, and design patents, which protect how something looks. That distinction became extremely important in the final ruling, which we'll get to. So the jury found that Samsung had infringed several Apple patents, including Apple's design patents covering the iPhone's rounded rectangular front face, the bezel and the outer shape of the phone, and the grid style arrangement of coverable Apple icons on the home screen. Samsung was also found to infringe certain utility patents, including features such as bounce back scrolling and tap to zoom touch features functionality. The jury initially awarded Apple more than $1 billion in damages. However, the case went through years of appeals. The most important development came in 2016 when the United States Supreme Court reviewed the damages issue. The Supreme Court ruled that design patent damages do not always need to be based on profits from entire smartphones as a finished product. Instead, damages may be limited to the specific component or portion of the phone that contains the patented design. For example, this could mean the phone's front screen face, outer casing, or icon display interface, rather than all profits earned from the complete device. This was a major shift because it narrowed how design patent damages are calculated and created an important precedent for future cases. So for Apple, the case reinforced its reputation as an innovation leader and strengthened the value of its patent portfolio. For Samsung, although it paid damages, it remained highly successful and continued to grow globally after redesigning products. For the broader industry, the case increased awareness of patent litigation risks. It also encouraged companies to invest more heavily in product differentiation, legal protection, and research and development. The case demonstrated that patents can be used not only defensively but strategically as competitive business tools. In conclusion, the Apple vs. Samsung dispute was one of the most influential patent cases in modern history. It showed that intellectual property rights are critical in highly competitive industries. It also proved that design patents can carry significant financial value. Most importantly, the case clarified how courts should calculate damages in design patent disputes, by ruling that compensation does not automatically need to be based on profits from the entire finished product. Instead, courts may focus only on the specific component that contains the patented design, such as the phone's exterior shape or screen interface. This created a fairer and more practical standard for complex products made up of many different parts. From a strategic and economic perspective, this case encouraged inventors, and companies to patent their innovations in order to protect revenue, preserve market share, and maintain a competitive advantage. Overall, Apple vs. Samsung remains a landmark example of how intellectual property law can shape entire industries. Thank you.